We've been eating good this season, as the animation quality and storytelling have been on the rise these days, along with the sheer mass and quantity being shoved down our throat. Like, I'm busy watching 21 shows this season, and that's me specifically cutting shit out because I just simply didn't have the time, not to mention all the other shit I'm trying to catch up on, like Code Geass and Domestic Hoes. Anyways, after a few weeks of being forcefully spoon-fed many a plus-size TV show, there was a question which had been meandering in the back of my mind for quite some time now. What was the worst animes ever made? Despite being the first anime on this list, it quite frankly can't really be considered an anime for exactly 3 reasons. This show is basically if you collab with a VTuber and you both try to act out your lore. Now, since I don't have any friends, which, by the way, was totally my choice, I will probably never experience such a scenario.
And that's perfectly alright.
But yo, if you're looking for a VTuber to collab with,
what's the color of your nipples?
Yeah, you should probably look somewhere else, cause I kinda suck at my job. To be completely honest with you, this show is only slightly better than it looks, and I don't even know if the voice actors knew the cameras were rolling, cause if there even was a script, it obviously got lost in production because literally nobody read it. At the beginning of each episode, we would get a 2-sentence description of something vaguely related to the overall plot, and the rest was just 3 voice actors not even half trying to keep on topic. It's basically an elongated podcast/roleplay, and was kind of reminiscent of Fillion streams if Fillion was a girl. Strangely enough, it was actually surprisingly funny, in an ironic way of course. Not because the jokes were amusing in themselves, but because the entire cast looked and acted about as lost as Joe Biden trying to find his way off stage. The plot can't really be considered a story no more than water can be considered wet, or Joe Biden a functioning politician. I could explain the plot to you, but it was so irrelevant that I'm not even going to bother. It's a magical girls anime. What do you think it's about? Hey, it didn't make me want to unalive myself like some of the others down the list, and it actually got some chuckles out of me. 3 out of 10. Rusted Armors. Unlike Mahou Shoujo, this anime actually had a script, which for the most part didn't do much more than exist. The problem was that it was practically impossible to focus on what the characters were saying when every shot of CGI looks so bad it either can't be taken seriously or I had to keep myself from vomiting onto my keyboard. This is when I realized that I was in for a fruit basket of CGI animes, and also made me reflect on my prior placement of Date Alive. Maybe that show wasn't so bad after all. Overall, I think the voice actors were okay, but I'm sorry, this show started giving me PTSD at some point, and the amount of dragging my feet that occurred between episodes was enough to make me start tripping, if you know what I mean. Anyways, for the sake of journalism and the education of the youth, I will, at my utmost ability, attempt to recap the events of this rusty show. Basically, foreigners are invading Japan, and this one random group of characters decide that they aren't gonna let that happen, so they pull out their swords and guns commonly known as armors, and become racist. Okay, so we're about 1 sentence in and the story is already falling apart. Each character has their own daddy problems that I just couldn't bring myself to care about, and the villains were so laughably sad with their paper cutout lines and wonky banana movements. It makes me wonder if I was the one fighting the greater battle keeping my eyes open. This was very bad visually, but hey, I bet the manga was good. 3.5 out of 10. Ah yes, Gibiate. The horror to the show really begins at the title. Ha, you got gibated.
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh, I want to kill myself. Okay, this show can only be described in a single phrase.
I was going to
Funny enough, it was actually the first anime on this list to actually be animated in 2D. Well, at least most of it. This is one of those shows where the story isn't as bad as its style score. And in concept, well, let me explain. Basically, COVID happens, but instead of everyone staying home and watching more hentai, they turned into monsters and began trying to reproduce by sticking their stingers into people. Kinda like in Maze Runner. Except the only time we ever see this in action was when female generic mom gets an owie in the footsie, and this guy who literally ran into the stinger on purpose. See, this is why I don't go outside. Anyways, a year after the pandemic, when Jujutsu Kaisen started airing, a samurai and a ninja get teleported into modern day Japan. Allow me to introduce introduced to you our two main characters, Lancer, who can teleport except when dodging attacks, and Pretty Boy, who's, well, he's just pretty. After making gang symbols at the closest possible threat, blonde female character arrives and tases it. Without questioning their situation, they follow her to a survivor camp where definitely not cis doctor is working on a supposed cure. I must remind you, he is not the main antagonist of this story. The camp gets attacked, and everyone either dies or leaves in a family RV. Along the way to unspecified location, they fight monsters, and pick up this chick who gives me major JoJo vibes. A few more unimportant things happen, and the doctor turns himself into a monster and reveals that actually he was an alien. One day, his mothership crashed into Earth for unexplained reasons, and as it passed through the atmosphere, this girl's like, "Oh, a comet? I'll just make a wish." And that wish made the samurai show up.
Are you fucking dumb?
Suddenly, their swords start working again, and they manage to kill the baddie. Pretty Boy gets scratched, blonde chick and Lancer piss off, and the story ends.
What? What the fuck?
I don't need to tell you that the CGI is bad, and that's the main reason why the show was rated so poorly, but I personally don't think that this deserves to be in the Big Ten, and while the story is garbage, it doesn't feel all that terrible until the very end. I'm not going to convince you that this is better than it's rated, but it just didn't feel like the worst of the worst. 4 out of 10. Ninja Collection. After watching this show, I had a singular question. Why does this exist? Now, after reading the synopsis, you may be thinking to yourself, what are these ninjas? What are they fighting? Why are they fighting? Well, allow me, dear viewer, to kill one stone with two birds and answer all these questions and more with a singular phrase.
Who knows?
Basically, each episode is a random 5-minute slideshow of some barely passable art with little to no voice acting. They all follow along the same lines as every other episode in the series. Long and short of it, they show us a person. Said person gets spooked. Something bad happens and then everyone wakes up and everything's back to normal, like nothing ever happened, and whatever literally just happened could sometimes be classified as traumatic. The characters just kind of shrug it off with a "seems legit" and promptly move on with their day. Meanwhile, it is hinted that perhaps something did happen and somebody might have done something to fix it. By my absolute genius and complete godlike ability of deduction, I was able to come to the conclusion that, yeah, that person might have been a ninja. This show is boring, bland, and lacks any sort of creepiness or just qualities in general. This show moved at a shocking 1 frame per second, absolutely destroying its competitors and leaving them behind in the dust. All jokes aside, the 2x speed button simply wasn't fast enough to save me from the amount of brain damage I suffered from having to sit through this shit. Watching paint dry for 10 minutes would be less painful than watching these 10 episodes again. 2 out of 10. Hanoka. When I first heard about this anime being made in Flash, I was bewildered, for lack of a better word. Flash. Like Adobe Flash? Let's get the story over with. So aliens attack Earth, and humanity fights back with their own alien hybrid, whose powers get stronger when she's distressed for unspecified reasons. Anyway, she teams up with this one girl. Wait, that's a dude?
How about that?
Also, why the hell does it have that goofy ass watermark on the top? I mean, I sure as hell will be claiming this as my property. Anyways, nothing really interesting happens. They just kind of kill the aliens and the story just stops. This show's lack of originality sticks out like a sore thumb, and the complete massive cliche one-liners hurt like a cucumber up my ass. Not that I know what that feels like. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The animation is... hold on, let me find the right word. Unwholesome. I don't know why or what drove the writers and animators to complete this, let alone air on live TV. It felt like going through your 10-year-old DeviantArt account that you want to delete now as an adult out of embarrassment, but can't remember the password.
Hi, boy.
I laughed, I cried, and I barfed more times than I can count. You know how there's a saying, at least they tried? Well, to be honest, I disagree in this case. And if they did put effort into any part of this show, then perhaps they should find themselves a new career, because this one ain't working out for them. 2 out of 10 show. Forest Fairy 5 is a bad anime for bad anime watchers. In the reviews for this show, I was made aware of a fraction of the population who takes amusement in forcing and torturing themselves into watching bad anime. This show was made by people on crack for people on shrooms. This fever dream of a show doesn't have a plot. The characters just stand around the entire time staring at random footage of Japan while commentating in the slowest, most uninterested tones I've heard from anyone in that culture. I don't think the voice actors could have sounded any border, and the amount of effort they put in was probably close to 1%. And lastly, the lighting. Oh god, the lighting. This anime can and will cause seizures if you watch it without sunglasses. 1.5 out of 10. Vampire Holmes is the detective anime about Sherlock Holmes ever made. It's also the only Sherlock Holmes anime ever made because apparently Moriarty is better suited for the main character position anyway. What on earth vampires have to do with anything, I am still unsure to this day. As something that is not unfamiliar to this list, the CGI is bad. Again. Luckily, there's not much of it since the episodes are only 3 minutes long and half of it was made using Gacha Life. There's about 1 joke per episode, and out of the 12, only 3 made me exhale slightly faster through my nose. In the end, it was only slightly unwatchable, and with the runtime of each episode being about as long as your dad's presence in your life, it did get some minor heh-hehs out of me. 4 out of 10. Pupa. What an absolute mess. It's a mix of single-scene episodes with not even enough runtime to be considered horrifying, as was apparently intended. Allow me to describe to you the story in its glorious entirety. Episode 1. Sister walks home from school, passes Witch Woman. Witch says something about not looking at butterflies, so immediately she starts looking at butterflies. Dog appears and shoots tongue out. Brother shows up and she turns into a monster. Episode 2. Sister eats people. Witch is like, I'm a scientist, and probably tries to take the sister to a lab. Brother is like, no incest, and lets the sister eat him. Episode 3. Brother saves her from a bit of traffic and lets her eat him in a bathroom stall. Episode 4. Brother kills researchers, and we find out that he has a regeneration ability. Now, episode 5 is where things start to get a little bit disturbing for a second. Mom has a kid. Don't know why, but she thinks it's a monster. Proceeds to try and unalive said child. Child regenerates. Episode 6. Sister eats brother. Episode 7. Witch takes a bath. Episode 8. Bad men beat up brother. Episode 9. Bad men dissect brother. Sister turns into ghoul. Episode 10. Sister kills everyone and finds brother. Episode 11. Sister eats brother, except this time he likes it.
What?
Episode 12. Flashback some years and they go to a theme park to get sister new creepy bear. Gambles, fails, and gets a hairpin instead. The end. One annoying aspect to this show, other than the absolute disgusting pacing, was the censorship. We get to watch as the sister slowly munches on her brother's flesh for 5 minutes, but if someone were to say, pull out a knife, Kia! Oh no, cover it up, like, why? This was shit. In fact, this was worse than shit. It actually had a promising premise, and I don't know if the manga was any better, but man, I want my 48 minutes of sanity back, please. 3 out of 10. Ladyspo. I think the creators thought they were being clever or something because Ladyspo stands for Lady Sports. Yeah, so basically the show has about every problem Ninja Collection had except it's women's sports in space. If not for anything else, this show at least had some personality, whereas Ninja Collection was just a cutting board in comparison. Watching women's sports has never been a huge hobby of mine, and this did nothing in the way of changing my mind. It was short and very, very boring. Also, this guy's a PDF file. 2 out of 10. Hell was a lot closer to me than I had ever expected. I now know the true depths to insanity, and as the end credits rolled one too many times, I also now know how to tie a certain knot. So yeah, you could say I learned something. The story is a convoluted mess of horseshit and farty dialogue, all of which coming together in one disturbingly large dumpster fire. Apparently, the director specialized in live action, although I am told that those were also kinda ass, but according to sources, there was only one person out of the entire studio who had ever worked on an anime in his life. And yeah, it shows. Some NPCs were randomly in 2D for no particular reason, and I don't think the showrunners know either. I really don't want to explain the plot to this show. Just thinking about it causes me panic attacks. But for the sake of my viewers, and since I'm already this far down the rabbit hole, I will swallow my pills and attempt to explain what no man should ever have to explain again. So it's 2014, and our main character Akira gets isekai'd into the future as a Boltzmann brain, which has the insane ability to overheat and smoke. Side note, you can also hack female androids and hijack their bodies.
Okay.
Basically, the lore is that there are these people with prominent right arms known as the X-arms that are supposed to be very strong. Anyway, since Akira only has a head, he possesses this android's body after she politely asks him to, and I quote, hurry up and get inside me. She then factory resets by becoming lesbian with the closest bystander. They fight some not so threatening terrorists, and we find out the MC did something bad in his past, something which we were reminded of way too many times, but is never actually explained. On top of this, every now and then, we are given another flashback of his 2D brother saying the most cliche thing like, don't forget to help people, before disappearing never to return until the next flashback. Anyways, the story ends with the MC hacking a nuclear warhead and blowing it up over Tokyo. This, for some unexplained reason, kills only the MC, except it doesn't, because in the after credits scene, oh, the robot moved, meaning he's still alive, much to my own dismay. But then I realized,
I don't care.
The visuals. Do I even have to say what's wrong with these abominations? Like, how do you make character models glitch in animation? I don't know how Studio Visual Flight managed to make a show as hideous as this without somebody questioning their career. Like, did no one stop to think maybe, just maybe, this was a bad idea? There just simply aren't enough beers in this world to make me unsee this show. If you managed to make it to the end of this anime,
horny.
I congratulate you. You are a masochist. 0.5 out of 10. Okay, so that was a long ass video. Probably something I won't do again, cause holy shit did I hate my life during the making of. It's only been 2 videos into my anime YouTube journey, and already I want to call in sick.
Something smells good in there.
But if you enjoyed watching me torture myself, then consider supporting my mental health by smashing that subscribe button. Now that you're aware of what to remove from your watch later list, you might want to check out my other video where I rank the best and worst anime from last season. Anyways, thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe and no incest.